And once again, it's nice to meet all of you virtually. So we're going to get started just with some generalizations about, why a student might select to come to MCC. I don't know, some of you may have been in Rochester a month or a year, and maybe you figured it out that this is a college town. So there are many colleges in the city of Rochester and in the suburbs. Some are private, some are state affiliated like we are. But why would a student opt to enroll at MCC? Well, there's a list here that's showing on your screen of potential reasons a student might select to enroll at MCC. And I'll just highlight a couple of them. Certainly flexibility, especially right now during the pandemic, our course delivery options are offering students a lot of variety for study. Some students are loving online learning and virtual learning because it fits in with their home life, their family life, it affords them flexibility. But about 50% of our coursework is being offered online at this point. I'm sorry, in person, face-to-face at this point. So it's a blend. One of the items talks about affordability, and we will go more in depth in that, but MCC is probably one of the most affordable options in our local community. So our tuition is low because of our relationship with State University of New York, or SUNY. Let's see, access to technology and career services. For any student who's ever been on our campus, you will witness and experience robust technology, and that's available in the classrooms with smart boards. It's in our library with computers and technology that students can access free of charge. It's all a benefit to you once you become a student here. One of the items talks about choices. So it is uncommon to find a college that has over 100 academic programs. So we could certainly take a poll and say, who's interested in becoming a nurse or going into business administration or hospitality, like nearly any major you say, I would probably respond and say, we can help you get there. So there are over 100 degree and certificate programs available at MCC. So I often joke and I say, we're trying to be everything to everybody. And that's because we are a large community college and we're trying to meet the needs of a diverse community. So we offer a lot of academic options to meet those needs. So although I won't say it frequently because it's a long title, I will say it this one time. MCC is part of the State University of New York, what we refer to as SUNY. SUNY is a campus-wide system here in New York State that it's comprised of 64 colleges and universities, and MCC is one of those. So our full formal title is SUNY Monroe Community College, or State University of New York, Monroe Community College, but probably 100 times during the presentation, you'll just hear me say MCC at MCC. It'll be ringing in your head at night tonight. We're a large place, and I don't say that to brag or to look cool. I say it because it's a matter of fact. Monroe Community College, we're a large institution. We enroll many students, and we're one of the largest colleges in the state of New York. The third bullet talks about our rank nationally for degree completion. Well, if we're a large college and we enroll a lot of students, we graduate a lot of students too. So that's kind of what it alludes to, that for anybody who's been to graduation, I certainly have each year, there are thousands and thousands of students who graduate each year and who might go on to employment or upon graduation go on to university to pursue a bachelor's degree or a higher level degree. Carly and I are on campus right now at Brighton campus, which is at East Henrietta Road. So if you're familiar with like the Marketplace Mall area, Jefferson Road with all the restaurants and the shops, that's what we're near. And it's our main campus location, but there are 6 campus locations throughout the city of Rochester. I won't bore you with all of them, but just know that there are campus locations strategically placed throughout the county so that students can access learning. And there is some strategy to where we anchor academic programs so that students have access to perhaps technology, training, internships, field work, etc. So again, this is just a short list. Brighton campus is the main campus. I will say most academic programs anchor at this campus location, the one at East Henrietta Road, like kind of Brighton, Henrietta area. The next one listed is the downtown campus. And I know you guys are coming to me from Hart Street right now, so you're also downtown. This would be the closest campus location to where you're at physically right now. Downtown campus anchors a few very specific majors that are service oriented. For any student who might be interested in criminal justice, becoming a police officer, social work in a helping profession, addictions counseling, education, whether teacher assistant or becoming a New York State certified teacher, all those kind of helping professions anchor at the city campus location. It's at 321 State Street. If anybody's ever been to like the Rochester Red Wings Stadium, or if you know where it is, our campus location is adjacent to that. The Applied Technology Center is at West Henrietta Road. If anybody's been to Jay's Diner, Movies 10, our campus location is tucked right into that area. It anchors a few very specific majors for automotive, working on cars, brakes, transmissions, heating, ventilation, air conditioning. In the room I'm sitting in and the rooms you're sitting in, there is air circulating and it's providing you heat on this cold day. And then majors for precision machining and tooling, which is making very specific measurements for parts that might go in cars, airplanes, equipment, manufacturing. Public safety training facility is at Scottsville Road near the Rochester International Airport, and only a few very specific majors anchor at that location for students who want to become a paramedic, again, a helping profession, an EMT, or work in Homeland Security. And Carly can attest to this, that there are a lot of students who enter the Homeland Security major who, like you, may possess a second language. It's very advantageous. The fifth one is the Economic Development and Workforce Services. That's kind of what we call the non-credit side of the college, but there are some short-term classes that lead students into, short certifications that may lead to employment. Like you've heard MCC has perhaps a plumbing program or a welding program, or Carly, I've heard a lot about like the students who want to do medical interpreting.
Yeah.
And that happens at the non-credit side of the house too.
Yep. And CNA, like a certified nursing assistant, if you want to be like a home healthcare aide.
And I think I don't know where we stand with LPN. Either it's here or it's coming, but both of those are on the non-credit side of the house. And then lastly, the virtual campus, which believe it or not, MCC has been offering virtual classes like way in the way back machine before COVID. So when we had to depart campus in March of 2020, it wasn't a huge shift because we had been doing it for years. So certainly there is a robust online learning opportunities here at the college as well. So I had mentioned this, that there is a lot of variety at MCC, over 100 degree and certificate programs. And I want to explain some of that language. So what is a degree and what is a certificate? Because we are a community college, generally known as a two-year college, the highest degrees or credentials that we can award a student is an associate's degree. It's kind of known as a two-year degree, but there's two types of associate degrees. One is intended for a student to go on and transfer to university. So you can consider MCC like the freshman and the sophomore year, so the first 2 years. And then a student would enter university for the junior and senior year to earn what's called a bachelor's degree. There are some students who say, no, I'm not doing all that college. I want to take 2 years, but I'm anxious to go to work and I want to start making money and provide for my family, have a career. In that case, there's a 2-year degree that's called the AAS, this one. And the AAS is also a 2-year credential, but it's more focused on students entering the workforce. after 2 years of study at MCC. If even 2 years feels like too much and you're looking for a very short-term certification to enter the workforce and get, again, start making money, we do offer 1-year certificate programs, which students can enroll if you enroll full-time, if life permits that you could complete it in 1 year and get a certificate credential from us. So those are the options. Associate's degree, generally 2 years. Certificate is generally 1 year. And there, I alluded to this, that there's a lot of, we had online programs even before the pandemic, but certainly for students who are interested in online study, that has only expanded during the pandemic. And this slide just shows a few examples of the programs that are maybe fully, entirely online, and some that could be completed maybe in a 50% format. Popular ones are business administration, becoming a teacher, education, that can be done entirely online. Mathematics, hey, it's not for me, but maybe for some of you who are passionate about learning math, that is a program that can be done entirely online. Psychology, criminal justice, and accounting, but there are many, many others as well. For students who are considering beginning at MCC, this slide illustrates where you can go after MCC. And these are real colleges that are both nearby or in New York State. Some of you are probably familiar with the SUNY colleges at Geneseo and at Brockport, both of which are driving distance from here, maybe 30, 40 minutes. RIT is probably the closest to where I am right now. It's literally just a couple miles down the road. And then you'll see Syracuse, another private school, but I want to point out, Cornell, like that's a really big name here in New York. Columbia, same thing, it's located in New York City. These are private and competitive colleges. But I want you all to know our students go there. It may not be 50 or 60 students every year, but a handful, it might be 2, 5, or 10, but we have wonderful relationships with these colleges that those, competitive nearly Ivy League colleges are a reality for students who perhaps begin at MCC. Again, if transfer is too long of a road for some students to consider, we do have the degrees that lead to a career after 2 years, and this slide just talks about a few of those examples. We have been training healthcare students, nursing students specifically, since MCC was born in 1960. So we have a long and rich tradition of preparing students to enter the field of healthcare. Nursing is very popular right now, especially during the pandemic. It illustrated the need for healthcare professionals. But aside from traditional nursing, MCC offers radiologic technology, which is like an X-ray program, taking images of the body. We offer dental hygiene and dental assisting, working in the mouth, cleaning teeth, taking X-rays. We also offer surgical technician and laboratory technician. So a surgical tech person works as a member of the operating team in the basement of an operating room. A lab technician works with blood and body fluids and tests for infectious disease. Think of like working with a microscope in a laboratory setting. Another popular major that leads to employment immediately is hospitality. And so that's, our students are working in casinos and cruise ships. Obviously, traditionally, like restaurants and working as a chef, or even in the front of the house too, greeting guests in a restaurant. We have our own campus-run restaurant here at MCC as well. I do like to highlight optics. When I say optics, I think students immediately think classes like this. You're not that far off, but our optics program, it's actually called Optical Systems Tech. And optics is the study of light and lasers. Think about if anybody has like green light networks, that fiber optic that brings internet into your home, that's optics. If anybody drives a car and it has one of those backup cameras to help you back up, that's optics. We all have cell phones and with a camera, that's optics. So working with light and lasers. It's a very high tech field, and MCC is the only community college in the country that has a 2-year optical systems tech program. If you're looking to stay in Rochester, and if you like math and science, this is a wonderful opportunity to consider. Like I said, it kind of flies under the radar because you go, optics, I don't know about it, or we don't talk about it a lot, but it is a growing field here in Rochester and a popular major at MCC. When I started working here 10 or 15 years ago, I was not talking about manufacturing, but we are now. So it's something that has become cyclical over the years, and especially agriculture and food manufacturing is picked up locally. There's a yogurt plant in Batavia, right? There's mechatronics, which is another degree. It's not on this slide, but that helps troubleshoot, manufacturing, conveyor belts and automation, robotics, things like that. Criminal justice, sometimes I feel like I'm selling a car. We have a couple different options for criminal justice, but this is leading into a career, into employment. To become a police officer is one of them. And then a lot of the majors talk about technology at the end, right? Information technology, automotive technology, construction technology, anything with the word technology in it, think of it as being very hands-on, applied, right? With electronics, you're working with circuit boards. For automotive, yeah, taking apart brakes and transmissions inside of the car. So those are very hands-on and applied programs. And then this is a reality too. Like, if I get a degree from MCC, where can I work? And this is a list of companies locally, hopefully that you've heard of and that you recognize. I mean, here's the fabulous Wegmans, we all know, that are hiring MCC students upon graduation. Sidor, here's the optics one. The man who owns this company is an MCC alumni. He graduated from MCC, so he likes to hire MCC students too. And this slide gives an example of, outside of studying at MCC and earning a degree, how can we help our students succeed? And sometimes it's things like this, childcare assistance. We have our own childcare center here on campus, so that students, if you are in need of childcare assistance, can apply for grants and subsidies. And it might be convenient, again, to have the childcare here than making, more stops or traveling for childcare elsewhere. Any MCC student also receives transportation assistance by way of an RTS bus pass, the ability to bring your car to campus. And we have a ride share program with the bicycles, not at this time of year, but in the spring we do. And then these other programs help students who are suffering from food insecurity. If you're in need of a meal, a gift card to get groceries, we help students with those types of things. And if you need a small scholarship to help cover rent or help repair your car, students can apply through these Dream Keepers programs for short-term scholarships, because we want you to stay enrolled in school and complete and join society with your degree and get a meaningful job. We're going to transition now. We talked about academics and programs, but if I want to come, how can I pay for this? Before we start, are there any questions, Hannah, that we want to intercept before we go too far?
Yeah, I just want to check in, I guess, with everybody, all the teachers. Speak up if you think the pace is too fast still. I know, you guys can obviously tell your students are saying. And if you have any questions about what was talked about, just speak up now. We can just open up the floor for anything anyone has concerns about. In the chat, or you can unmute, either one. Okay, somebody said still a little fast.
Okay. Yes, I'll do my best to slow things down a bit.
All right. All right. They're just.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. You can see that.
Just want to let us know when you're ready to start again. You could probably pause the recording, Hannah, if you want. Okay. So Meryl talked about all of the different academic opportunities that you have available to you at MCC. So like she said, now you are probably wondering, how am I going to make this happen? How am I going to get through the door? How am I going to afford to pay? So what's wonderful about MCC is that we are probably the least expensive tuition that you are going to be able to find in New York State. We have a New York State resident tuition cost of about $2,353 per semester for a full-time student. With college fees, there are fees for, different things like technology and student life and health services. So with additional fees, that's going to be about $3,000, a little bit more than $3,000 per semester. But that's about the least expensive that higher education is going to get. And the good thing about that is if you are a student who qualifies for financial aid, our tuition and fees are low enough that for many students, financial aid will cover all or most of their tuition to MCC. So many students make it through their time with owing very little money or none at all by the time they graduate, depending on how much money their family earns and how much they're expected to afford on their own to pay. For students whose families make a little more money and they're not awarded as much financial aid, students can take out loans or apply for scholarships as well. For part-time students, if you want to take less than 12 credits, be less than full-time, you can see our part-time rate there as well, which is quite low. Being a full-time student is more cost-effective. If you are able to enroll full-time, the overall rate is less and you will be awarded more financial aid as a full-time student than a part-time student. But of course, we understand that many of you might have part-time jobs already or full-time jobs, or you have children, or you have other family responsibilities, and full-time is not possible for everyone. But MCC is wonderful because of its affordability. If you started your first 2 years at a four-year institution like SUNY Brockport, like Meryl mentioned, or Geneseo, it's still going to be considerably more expensive than starting your time at MCC. So even if your dream and your goal is to go on for that four-year degree, for that bachelor's degree, or even for a master's degree in the future, starting at MCC is a wonderful way to still reach those big goals, but cut that amount of money that you may owe or need to pay. You're going to cut that way down. So it's just an amazing way, no matter how big or how broad your educational goals may be, it's always a great place to start because you're going to get a high quality education here from teachers who really care, and you're going to have small class sizes, and you're going to pay much less than you would for your first 2 or 3 years than you would at that by starting off right away at that four-year school. I hope that made sense. So I talked a little bit about financial aid, so I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about what that means. So there are 2 levels of financial aid. The first level is federal, which means it's coming from the federal United States government. And in order to apply for that federal aid, you fill out an application called a FAFSA, F-A-F-S-A. It's the Federal Application for Free Student Aid. And the other level is the New York State level of financial aid from the New York State government. And that's called TAP, T-A-P, and that's the Tuition Assistance Program. So there are two different applications. Most students will apply for both of those at the same time. You will submit personal information about, you will submit tax documents about how much money you or your family earns in income. And then the government of the federal government and the state government, they do some math to determine how much money they feel you should be able to afford to pay for school on your own and how much money the government might be able to give you to help cover the cost of your education. And like I mentioned, if your family does not make very much money and the government sees that, you may get enough financial aid in FAFSA alone to cover your whole bill at MCC each semester. And then if you also get TAP, the state aid, you may get a refund, which means you get even more money from the government than you need to cover your bill. So you can get some of that back to help cover things like your living expenses and your books. So that's the situation that a lot of our students have, and it makes school much more affordable to them. MCC also has a large number of scholarships. Over $1.6 million was awarded to MCC students last year in scholarships. Scholarships are usually smaller amounts of money, usually between, I would say, on average, $500 to about $1,500. And each scholarship has its own criteria for selection. So some scholarships are for graduates of the Rochester City School District, or other scholarships might be for math and science students. But there's many different kinds, and we encourage students to apply for them each year because there may be a scholarship that can be awarded to you to help you pay for school and living expenses even more. As I mentioned, you can also take out low interest federal loans to help cover your tuition and help cover your living expenses as well. But those are things that you have to pay back after you graduate. Many students also work on campus. They get awarded a federal work-study grant. And if they're able to find an office or an area of campus that's hiring for a part-time job, they can work and receive an hourly wage on campus to help offset costs as well. This is usually not a lot of money, usually maybe $3,000 maximum per year. But if you are able to find a job on campus and you're eligible for a work study, it's just great to have for extra pocket money. And then, like I mentioned, for part-time students, you're not going to get quite as much aid, but you still can apply for financial aid as a part-time student, and it can help cover your school still. I'll go into this in a little bit more detail when I talk about English levels, but I see that we have ESOL students and also American adult students in these classrooms. And what's wonderful about MCC is just recently we introduced some additional grant funded programs for students who, so for example, our students who would have traditionally started at MCC at our lowest level of ESL, of English, they used to have to use their financial aid to pay for basically full-time ESOL. Now we have a grant funded program that will cover that first semester of study for you of English and math. And you would only pay $75 for the whole semester. Books are included and everything. So instead of using up a semester of financial aid on lower level math or English to help get you up to speed, you can spend your first semester basically coming for free, which is wonderful. And you can save that financial aid to use later when you're studying courses that are actually required for your degree or certificate program. So we have this for ESOL students. We also have this for native English speakers as well, for students who test into transitional English and our lower levels of math. If you need a semester to kind of get your English and math skills up to college level, you can do our Strong Foundations program for a semester, have it covered by the college. You only pay a $75 parking fee. And then you have an extra semester to use your financial aid toward your program. All right, so as for admission, the first step would be submitting an application to MCC. Most students will go ahead and submit their application online. If you go to MCC's website and go to apply, you create an account online, you fill out some basic personal information, your address, your phone number, the major or program that you intend to study, or you can indicate that you're undecided, that you don't know, that's fine. And you submit that application, and that's what gets the process started. As soon as you submit an application, you are given an MCC student ID number, and that is your student ID number at MCC for the duration of your program. You need it for many things. You'll be asked for it multiple times a day. Anytime you need help with anything, they'll ask for that student ID number. So first step is to submit an application. If you're comfortable doing that online on your own, that's amazing. If you feel like you're having trouble with it or you don't have access to the technology, you can always come here on campus to the admissions office. They have computers right there in the office you can use to fill out the application, and they have helpers there in the office that can walk you through the process of submitting the application. After you've submitted your application, the college is going to ask for a couple of things. The main thing, the most important thing, is going to be your proof of that you've completed high school. So for students who are who finished high school, secondary school in a foreign country, hopefully you still have in your home, or you have access to your high school transcript or your leaving exams or your graduation certificate. So we will need that. And it hopefully, if possible, you will be able to get that translated into English as well. Our processors in the admissions office, we have some that speak Spanish or maybe a little bit of French, but we don't have processors that can read Arabic or Turkish or many Farsi, many of these other languages that your documents might be in. So if you can get them translated into English, that's really helpful to us. If you graduated from a local high school, or you finished or will finish your high school equivalency test here in New York, we will need those documents as well.
Rebecca asked if there's a local company that you recommend for that translation of those documents.
Yeah, we have a list. So if a student comes in with a foreign document, we can send them a list of people that we recommend. No problem.
Would that be something you could maybe send to me and then I can just forward to everyone?
Sure.
Okay, perfect.
No problem.
I have, Rebecca, I have a question, Carly.
Sure.
Hi, this is Kunlu. I just wonder, what if people have a high school diploma in their country and they cannot bring it out or be due to the war situation? They didn't have their certificate with them, but they did graduate it. Is there any way that we can claim that?
Yeah, so it depends on their situation. If they entered the United States as a refugee, there is some legislation from the New York State government that can allow us to sort of waive that, but there's some other documents that they might need to do or some other steps that they might need to take. If they simply lost the document, and they didn't come from a place where the school no longer exists because of war, I would recommend that they try their best to contact their home country's Ministry of Education or reach out to the school in some way to see if there's a way for them to get a copy. But I know that for some students, in especially, maybe Syria or Iraq or some of these countries where there's just been a lot of war and destruction, the school may no longer be there. There just might not be a way. They can work with us and we can see what we can do in terms of getting that waived.
Thank you.
Also, a photo of a certificate or diploma. How does that stand? Does that?
Yeah, I think with COVID, we've become a lot more flexible with what we can accept. I think we used to want hard copies of those documents, but I think given, the way that the direction in the world is moving, and with COVID especially, we have moved toward accepting digital documents much more than in the past. So if they have a clear scan or a photo of a document, I think in most cases that should be fine. Meryl, is there anything you want to add?
Just the clarity of it. I mean, some people who, when you take the picture, it is unclear. I can see your bedroom in the background. In most cases, again, we are trying to be as flexible as possible. I would always say, I'll entertain it. I will review it. I'll look at it. But it needs to be translated, accompanied by a translation, and somehow evidence graduation or completion, like evidencing a date or have some indication of that. So I would say, yes, share what you have and we can have a discussion about it. And if there needs to be a qualifying document or a supplemental document, we will talk about it.
Yeah, we will always look at what you have and go from there. So show us what you have and we can always go from there. For some students also, we do have a program in which, what is it called, Meryl? Not Strong Foundations, but Pathways to College. Yeah, our Pathways to College program, in which students can earn their high school equivalency, their New York State high school equivalency diploma, sort of en route to their associate's degree. They can complete a certain number of courses in things like English, math, science, speech communication, social sciences, and it'll count often toward their associate's degree. And they can earn their high school equivalency diploma en route. So say you're from a country that doesn't, and you did not enter as a refugee, and so you do not qualify for the exception, but you're still not able to get a hold of your documents, that might be a good option or a pathway for you. Or if you just simply didn't graduate from high school in your home country and you want to try this path, it's a really great option. I see.
Hi, those courses have to be credit course, right? It's not the ESL English class.
Yeah, you got it. So some students might need to start off in ESL before they can get to our college English composition and our English literature classes, because those are the ones that they'll need in order to qualify for the high school equivalency. I see there's some questions about financial aid stuff for non-citizens. I'll get to that at the end. Are there any other questions right now about academic documents? Okay. If you've completed any university studies previously, like in your home country before you came to the US, I would recommend that you talk to me before you apply, and we can talk about that. Sometimes it's worth it to get those university transcripts evaluated. Sometimes it might not be worth the cost to you to get those evaluated. So we can talk about what you studied, how that may help or hinder you going forward in the US and at MCC. So I would recommend that you contact me first and we can talk through that before you submit your documentation. And then for those of you who graduated from high school outside of the United States, or if you'll be graduating from inside the United States, but your first language is not English, we also will require an ESOL placement test as part of the admission process. You come on down to the Brighton campus here. We have a testing center, and it's a 75 question multiple choice test that is asking you, it's basically testing, reading comprehension, your knowledge of English grammar, and you can always retest as well if you don't feel that you performed well the first time or you don't get the score that you need to enroll at MCC. You can always retest, and you can try it as many times as you need to until you improve to the level that you need to enroll here. MCC does start at kind of a high intermediate level of English. We don't have English starting from a beginner or a lower intermediate level. So students have to get at least 43 points out of 75 points on our ESOL placement test in order to be at the level that they need to be successful at MCC. So we have many students who they test first and they're not quite at that level yet, and they need an extra semester at OASIS or REOC or BOCES. And then they retest in a couple months and they do much better. So, we always encourage students to work on it and, come back in a little bit, and then they're often ready. So when I talk about levels of English at MCC and levels on that test, that Strong Foundations program that I mentioned, our high intermediate level of English, that is a semester of pretty much full-time ESL. And that would be for students who test usually between like 43 and 53 points on our test. Students who score a little bit higher or have finished the Strong Foundations program move on to the low advanced level, which is ESL 140 and 145. Students who finish this or test even higher, they'd start off in our ESL 201. And then we do have students who test high enough to go directly into our college ready English 101 courses. So it's really, some students will need 3 semesters of English at MCC of ESOL. Some might only need 1 or 2 semesters. In the case of students who start off in our low advanced or high advanced levels of ESOL, you will be taking classes for your major, for your program of study alongside your ESOL classes. So you don't have to come in and just study English for 3 semesters. It would really just be that first level for students who test at Strong Foundations level. But after that, you can be working on your English and be taking courses for your academic program at the same time, which is great.
Carly, can I shout out to the classrooms that are working towards their GED or task test? They may not have English language learners in those classrooms and you're native English speakers. In that case, there is no placement test for you, which for better or worse, right? You do not have to sit for a placement test at MCC. In that case, when you sit for your task exam, you'll have sections for English, mathematics, science, reasoning, and we will use those results to appropriately place you into mathematics and English classes. So, as you're building up to that exam, and maybe it's coming up in the next few months, take it seriously. Certainly you want to pass it, but it will also be used for course placement at a place like MCC. So, like I said, for better or worse, the placement testing barrier has been removed here, and we're going to use your academic results from GED. Some of you might have gotten through freshman, sophomore, junior year of high school. We could use those as well, or a combination of, to find an appropriate placement.
If you have a foreign high school diploma, we do have a math placement test that you would take as well to ensure that you're placed in the correct level of math, to ensure that you're successful. But if you've done high school here in the United States, we'll use your high school transcripts to place you, so you don't have to go through the test. Okay, so I already see there's a question. How does financial aid work for non-US citizens? Do we need a green card, or what documents are needed? So this is something that I work with students with all the time. If you are a US citizen or you have a green card, you're a US permanent resident, that's great. In order to receive the New York State tuition rate, which is the rate that we showed on our slides several slides ago, you do need to have been a resident living in New York State for at least 1 year in order to get that tuition rate. So if you have not yet lived in New York State for at least 1 year, you unfortunately pay double that rate, double that tuition rate. In which case financial aid does not cover nearly as much as it would have if you were being charged the in-state rate. So if you're new to New York, we typically recommend that students wait to start unless they have the ability to fund their education out of pocket, or fund what's left after financial aid out of pocket. And I know for a lot of students, that's just not feasible. So a lot of students do choose to wait a semester to ensure that they can get that New York State tuition rate, because it is very expensive to pay that out of state rate. If you have applied for asylum, if you've entered the United States and you've applied to the US government for asylum, that's a little trickier, because we know asylum can take a very long time, unfortunately, to be processed and approved. So until a student is approved for asylum, it's got that stamp, it's got that I-94 record, they wouldn't be eligible for financial aid, and they also wouldn't be eligible for that New York State tuition rate. But as soon as you've got that stamp, the world kind of opens up for you. You'll be eligible for that New York State rate, and you'll be eligible for that financial aid also. Does that answer the question? Do we have students who are in kind of like an other type of situation that I could help address? Okay, there are some other categories of students that, so if they have an I-94, they would qualify for aid. So an I-94 is a very general document. An I-94 is actually a document that any person gets to that, and it documents their entry into the United States. So we'd have to look at the I-94 and look at the like the class of entry on that I-94. So if they entered, we'd have to see what their status is on that I-94. Just an I-94 paper alone does not qualify for aid. So for example, if someone entered as a visitor to the United States and they're here on a visitor visa, and it says they're here on a visitor visa on their I-94, they're not going to be eligible for financial aid at this time. I will put my general office email and also my personal email address into the chat, okay? Because I see that's being asked for.
Are there any other questions we can answer while you have us on the line? I think, you know, our combined experience in international education is probably approaching 40 years between me and Carly.
Yeah, financial aid can be a very complicated process, especially when a student maybe has a complicated immigration situation. So I'm always happy to like start that conversation and see what kind of documents you have, see what might be possible. And then if it seems like you're eligible to apply, we have experts in our financial aid office that can help with the application process and can talk with students in more depth about you know, applying and what sort of documents they're going to need for their FAFSA and all of that stuff. I'm happy to just sort of do like a pre-screening and see what students have and what might be possible. But then I like to hand students over to the experts to kind of get into the details of the financial aid process. And I just put my personal email address and then the office email into the chat. I'm going to send both because I do take vacations sometimes once in a blue moon. And it's great to have the office email as well, just in case I'm not available, someone else can see that message for you and get you the help that you need. Are there any other questions?
It looks like we're good. I think that will take care of it.